In this session, we are going to study covenant blessings and covenant curses. Covenant blessings and curses are written in Leviticus chapter 26 and Deuteronomy chapter 28. Why two times, not one? Because this covenant blessings and curses in Leviticus, it is given to the Egyptian generation, means older generations. And then Deuteronomy chapter 28, it is given to new generation. I call it wilderness generation, those who were born and raised in wilderness. So they didn't make a covenant with God, and then only Moses, just before entering the land of Canaan, he made a covenant. He explained the covenant law and made a covenant of Moab. So in the covenant Moab, so there is covenant blessings and covenant curses. So Deuteronomy is much longer than Leviticus. And also, covenant curses are much longer than covenant blessings. What does this mean? Means, I think, Moses already predicts that Israel would break the covenant. That's why they will get covenant curses. So the history of Israel, covenant history of Israel is very, very negative. So, but at least if to know covenant blessings and covenant curses are very important in interpreting, especially the books of prophets. Book of prophets. Prophets prophesy and they accuse people of Israel because of their idol worship, because of their breaking covenant. That's why, as a result, they will get covenant curses. That is their basic, fundamental prophecy. For example, in the case of Jeremiah, you will be taken to Babylon. Surrender, Babylon. At the time, the people, Israel leaders, were they were depending on Egypt. But Jeremiah knew the will of God because God gave him the will. So that's why he prophesied, you surrender Babylon, not Egypt. Okay? So prophets prophesied based on covenant law, based on covenant curses and covenant blessings. Of course, that they also prophesied about covenant blessings, like it's about hope, the Messiah. Actually, in the content of covenant blessing, Messiah is not contained, but actually covenant Messiah, the coming of Messiah is a covenant blessing, right? He's the fulfiller of Old Testament, Old Covenant, right? So let's go to chapter 26 of Leviticus and see some, study a little bit. Chapter 26. Verse 6 from verse 3. If you follow my decrees and are careful to obey my commands. Here, the covenant law is expressed as decrees and commands. The same word, If they keep covenant, verse 4, I will send you rain in its season, and the ground will yield its crops, and the trees their fruit. In the land of Canaan, It is very important for farmers to have enough rain because the land of Canaan is not very much fertile land, actually fertile. So it depends upon rain. If God does not send rain, actually, their farming industry will go bankrupt. You see, that's why it's very important. If Israel keep the covenant, obey covenant, then God will send rain for success of farming industry. And it continues, verse 5. Your threshing will continue until grape harvest, and the grape harvest will continue until planting, and you will eat all the food you want and live in safety in your land. Yeah, peace, safety in the land. So a lot of harvest, right? Verse 6, I will grant peace in the land, peace, right? And you will lie down and no one will make you afraid. I will remove wild beasts from the land and the sword will not pass through your country. God will secure safety, peace, as long as Israel obey covenant law. Verse 7, you will pursue your enemies and they will fall by the sword before you. Israel will defeat their enemies, right? If they obey the law, obey covenant. 8, verse 8. 5 of you will chase 100, and 100 of you will chase 10,000, and your enemies will fall by the sword before you. They'll be thoroughly defeated by you. Verse 9, I will look on you with favor and make you fruitful and increase your numbers, and I will keep my covenant with you. That's right. If Israel obeys covenant, then God will give them fruitfulness, right? Increase number. Verse 10, you will still be eating last year's harvest when you will have to move it out to make room for the new, right? Because the previous harvest was so plentiful. That's why still you will eat, right? Previous, harvest. And then verse 11, then I will put my dwelling place among you and I will abhor you. I will not abhor you. God will stay with Israel. And God will not hate Israel. And then verse 12, I will walk among you and be your God and you will be my people. Yeah, this is covenant formula. As long as you keep my covenant, I will be your God and you will be my people. And then verse 14 then. But if you not listen to me and carry out all these commands, if they don't obey God, if they don't keep covenant law, then what will happen? Verse 15, and if you reject my decrees and abhor my laws and fail to carry out all my commands and so violate my covenant, then verse 16, I will do this to you. I will bring on you sudden terror, wasting disease, and fever that will destroy your sight and sap your strength. You will plant seed in vain because your enemies will eat it. Their harvest is not useful, right? Oh, and then they will encounter disaster, all kinds of disease, whatever. And then verse 17, I set my face against you so that you will be defeated by your enemies. Yeah, Israel will be defeated by their enemies. And those who hate you will rule over you, and you will flee even when no one is pursuing you. Right. Their enemies will rule over them. Wow. 18, verse 18. If after all this you will not listen to me, I'll punish you for sins 7 times over. God is going to punish them then. Verse 19, I'll break down your stubborn pride and make the sky above you like iron and the ground beneath you. He's going to break down, right? Reduce their stubborn pride. And then verse 20, your strength will be spent in vain because your soil will not yield its crops, nor will the trees of your land yield their fruit. Okay, no fruit, not fruitful. Okay, And that is the curse, covenant curse. Verse 21, if you remain hostile toward me and refuse to listen to me, I will multiply your affliction 7 times over as your sins deserve, right? That's going to punish 7 times, means a lot more than they expect. And then verse 22, I send wild animals against you, and they will rob you of your children, destroy your cattle, make you so few in number that your roads will be deserted, right? Okay, even wild animals will, destroy the cattle, the animals of Israel. And then verse 25, I'll bring the sword on you to avenge the breaking of the covenant. Okay, because you break the covenant, okay, I'm going to avenge you. I'll send you a plague among you, and you will be given into enemy's hand. Wow. And then verse 26 about that they will have no food to eat. They'll have no, not enough food. Even, kind of one of the worst covenant curses. Verse 29, you will eat the flesh of your own sons and own daughters. Oh, it really happened in history, in the history of Israel. Okay. Verse 30, I will destroy your high places, cut down your incense altars, and pile your dead bodies on the lifeless forms of your idols, and I will abhor you. I'm going to destroy your idol worship places, idols, right? And then verse 31, I'll turn your cities into ruins and lay waste your sanctuaries. I'll take no delight in the pleasing aroma of your offering. I will not receive your animal offering because of your breaking covenant. So it is not pleasing aroma to him. And also he's going to destroy the cities. Verse 32, I myself will lay waste the land of Canaan, right? So that your enemies who live there will be appalled, right? And verse 33, I'll scatter you among the nations, and will draw out my sword and pursue you. Your land will be laid waste, and your cities will lie in ruins, okay? Scattered. In other words, they will be taken to foreign land. Well, it is a worst thing for Israelite, actually. Yeah, because they thought, the land of Canaan is a holy land, and they were given this land is given to them, and then they are holy people living in the holy land. But taken to foreign land means they should live in the unholy land, which is abominable to the people of Israel. Yeah. And verse 36, as for those of you who are left, I'll make their hearts so fearful in the lands of their enemies that the sound of a wind-blown leaf will put them to flight. They will run as though fleeing from the sword, and they will fall even though no one is pursuing them. Yeah, they are so afraid of anything, even little thing. And then verse 37, they will stumble over one another as though fleeing from the sword, even though no one is pursuing them. So you will not be able to stand before your enemies, right? Yes. And then verse 38, you will perish among the nations. The land of your enemies will devour you. Like that. Verse 39, those of you who are left will waste away in the lands of their enemies because of their sins. Also, because of their ancestors' sins, they will waste away. Yes, they'll be scattered. And because of their sins, they'll be weakened. Yes. The ultimate covenant curse is Israel's being taken to foreign land. That's why you see we know the result. Israel, because of their idol worship and because of their covenant breaking, especially by oppressing the poor people, right? They were taken into exile. They were taken to Babylon. That is the result of the ultimate result of covenant curse. Many prophets are prophesying about this, but still Israel did not listen. Especially in the case of Jeremiah. Then, though Jeremiah preached it, prophesied, but you surrender Babylon, okay, that is the will of God. But the leaders of Israel, South Judah, persecute Jeremiah and captivate him and took him to Egypt. Because many of the leaders of Israel at the time were dependent upon Egypt, and then they fled to Egypt. And then when they fled, actually, they took Egypt. Because Jeremiah was against Egypt, because he knew that, Jeremiah knew that surrendering Babylon, surrendering to Babylon is the will of God. That's why he couldn't resist prophesying. He had no choice but to prophesy about that. Yeah. So many prophets are talking about, this like destruction of Israel because of their sin, because of their covenant breaking, broke the covenant. Yeah. So not only in the book of prophets, actually in the historical books, okay, also it's like the writers wrote, and especially the Kings, First King, Second King, like actually they wrote the achievements of a king, their standard of greatness greatness as king is whether they keep the covenant, whether they follow the David's way, or whether they follow Jeroboam. If they follow the Jeroboam's way, then they broke which means they are wicked kings. So who broke the covenant already. If the kings follow David, they kept the covenant, they obeyed the covenant, they were faithful and good kings. It's like that. So basically, on the books of Old Testament should be interpreted according to the covenant, and especially covenant curses and covenant blessings. Later, we will practice interpreting the Old Testament, especially prophets, in terms of covenant. Okay, thanks. So we are going to study in our next session, about covenant war. Okay, thank you very much.